Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Desatarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Oh, good. I see some faces here that I haven't seen in a long time, and nice to be back in St. Louis after COVID and all of that. And I see some new faces, so nice to visit and see new faces too. Some of you like reading Prabhupada's books. I know. So I'm going to ask you a Prabhupada's books question. Quiz question. Surprise quiz question. There are several places in Shrimad Bhagavatam that express the essence of the entire Shrimad Bhagavatam. Raise your hand if you know one of those sections of Shrimad Bhagavatam, and then another one, and then another one. Sections of Shrimad Bhagavatam that express the essence of the entire Shrimad Bhagavatam. Narad is talking to Vyasadeva. Do you know the verses? You know the chapter? Okay, that's nice. You have. uh, Okay. Did you all get what she just said? Can you say it again slower and clearer? Canto to chapter 9, text number 30 through 33. I think that's it. Chatur Sloki verses. Have you heard that before? By Darby, you've heard that before? Chatur means four. There are four essential verses in Canto 2, Chapter 9. That's the essence of the entire Shrimad Bhagavatam. Canto 2, Chapter 9. Why don't you look it up in your little database.com? Find out the exact numbers so the devotees here can look it up later. 33 to 36. Very good. Okay. Any others? Any others? How about this one? There are two verses in the entire Shrimad Bhagavatam that list the 10 topics of Shrimad Bhagavatam. Well, you've already answered. Let's see if somebody else knows. There are two verses in Shrimad Bhagavatam that give the list of 10 topics covered in the entire Shrimad Bhagavatam. So that's kind of an essence. It's packed up. It's either at the end or towards the end of Canto 2, Chapter 9. Huh? 210.1. Very good. Okay. 210, first verse of chapter 10. Then again, it's in Canto 12. Same list. It's in Canto 12. And I was thinking to speak about another list because following what was just referenced, the summary of Narada to Vyas at the end of chapter 6 comes chapter 7, comes after chapter 6. And in that chapter, Vyasadeva does what Narada instructs him to do, and he gets these realizations that are the basis of the entire Srimad Bhagavatam, starting with Canto 1, Chapter 7, Text 4. I was thinking to cover those 4, 5, 6. And you could expand it and say 4, 5, 6, 7. So 3 verses, 4 verses. The essence of the entire Srimad Bhagavatam. So my plan was, are you going to show it on the screen? Canto 1, Chapter 7, verse number 4. You can't do that. What? I didn't bring my laptop. Okay, so you don't have to see the verse. It's okay. That's technology has some use sometimes. Now it's everyone's attention's going to the screen, and that's not what I want. So, can you all not pay attention to the screen? He's going to do his thing, but pay attention to the message I'm about to speak. So we heard. Let's go back. One of the who is Vyasadeva? Vyasadeva. You don't give all the answers. Who is Vyasadeva? Ladies in the back, who is Vyasadeva? Say something about that you know about Vyasadeva. Something. What do you know? He's an incarnation. What kind? What's the adjective? Literary. What does that mean? He's empowered. He's a jiva who's empowered by the potency of the Supreme Lord to compile the Vedas. He's an avatar, a Shaktivesh avatar. Incarnation. So, Vyasadeva, another thing we know about Vyasadeva is he has capacity to know beyond the moment, past, present, and future perfectly. Trikala? Yeah. He knows past, present, and future. So he looked into the future. And what did he see? Krishna has departed from astronomy and from scripture, those two sources. He knew Kali Yuga is coming. There's a juncture between when Krishna departs and when Kali Yuga begins, but he knew Kali Yuga is going to begin, and he knew what that meant. The qualities in the world and the qualities inside people of their nature, it goes down and down and down. And one of the things that goes down, if you haven't noticed, is memory. Down and down and down and down. So since people will lose touch with being able to recall the Vedas, he decided as a literary contribution, let me take the Vedas into sound form, put them in a written form. So that's what he did. Therefore, literary incarnation. He not only wrote them down, but he made it easier. In 3 ways he made it easier. 1, he divided the Vedas into 4. This is described by Jiva Goswami in Tattva Sandarbha, one of his 6 Sandarbhas. He describes it this way. It's very nice. Supposing you have a treasure chest filled with jewels. Brahmanas in previous ages, they knew what was in that treasure chest. And if they were called upon to do any yajna, they knew what mantras, what tantras, what mudras, they knew. But as Kali Yuga it was advancing, that capacity to discern which mantras, which teachings supporting those mantras, etc., they would lose that capacity. Therefore, he took the one Veda with the big treasure chest of jewels and he divided it into 4 treasure chests according to the need of the Brahmana, and then he can go to this or that or the other treasure chest and draw from it according to necessity, because the Vedas are compared to a desire tree, but sometimes people don't even know what they want, what to speak of what they need. And so he made it easy, divided the Vedas into 4. Then in addition to dividing the Vedas into 4, what else did he do? He wrote the history or the Smriti section that's as Vedic. Jiva Goswami spends a lot of time. They're as Vedic as the Shrutis. The Smritis, I'll say it again, they're as Vedic as the Shrutis. They're Vedic. Their just function is different. The Sanskrit is different. There's Laukika and Alaukika Sanskrit. Anyway, he compiled all of that, specifically Mahabharata and the 18 Puranas, and then the Upa Puranas. That's a lot of writing. And then to help these very sharp people preserve the meaning so it stays intact, the Brahma Sutras or Vedanta Sutras, he did all that work. So now the reference that was made before, he was reflecting on how did it come out, and he was feeling despondent, not just like not satisfied, but despondent. He was puzzled. And he started asking himself, why am I feeling like this? Narada came and explained to him why he was feeling like that. Because he had not sufficiently glorified the personality of Godhead. And then those verses that we heard, what were the verse numbers? 1, 6, what's the verse numbers? No. Not, what you said, chapter 6, text number, what through what? Chapter 6, 35, 36, 34, 35, 36. More or less in that range. Towards the end of chapter 6. Yes? Okay. And Narada left. Chapter 7 begins. I'll read the verses, and then we'll read verse number 4. The great and transcendently powerful Vyasadeva heard everything from Sri Narada Muni. So after Narada's departure, what did Vyasadeva do? Sutta said, on the western bank of the river Saraswati, which is immediately related with the Vedas, there is a cottage for meditation at Samyaprasa, which enlivens the transcendental activities of the sages. In that place, Srila Vyasadeva, in his own ashram, which was surrounded by berry trees, sat down to meditate after touching water for purification. And then comes text 4, which is what we're going to be discussing. And it's on the screen, right? Text 4 is on the screen? Yes? I'm asking. So why don't you do it? Oh, you're doing it. Okay. So let us say the verse responsively. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Bhakti Yogena Manasi. Samyak Pranihate. Excuse me. Samyak Pranihate Male. Apashat Purusham Purnam. Mayam cha tadapashrayam. One more time. Bhakti yogena manasi. Samyak pranihate male. Apashat purusham purnam. Mayam cha tadapashrayam. Translation. Thus he fixed his mind, perfectly engaging it by linking it in devotional service, bhakti yoga, without any tinge of materialism, and thus he saw the absolute personality of Godhead, along with his external energy, which was under his full control. Let's do the last part. Mayam cha tad apashrayam. The Maya, his external energy, was under his full control. Maya, his external energy, tad apashrayam. That is a pronoun, possessive pronoun. His apashrayam, his full control. Maya had taken shelter of him, or Maya was under his full control. So he saw the material energy, he saw the personality of Godhead, apashat purusham purnam, purusha purna, parma purusha, or purusha purna, the supreme absolute personality of Godhead, and his external energy, Maya, which was under his full control. So it's darshan. What the instruction of Narada was from the previous section was, what you realize in this trance of meditation should be exclusively the subject of your next writing, because you've compiled and compiled and compiled, but you did not sufficiently glorify the source of everything, the supreme absolute truth, the personality of Godhead. So one literature that does that, and to enable you to do that, do this trance of meditation program. You know how to do it, Vyas. So do it. And then what you experience will be, shall be, the Srimad Bhagavatam. So that's what the Srimad Bhagavatam is. It's the written form of this realization that he's experiencing. And so within the verse, there's two things. There's the abhideya and there's the prayojana. Abhideya means the means of achieving something. So in the means of achieving realization of the personality of Godhead, there must be, it's not optional, there must be full concentration of the mind. When we're doing our devotional practices, most of us at least, we're not fully concentrated. We're, say the other, we're distracted, or we're multi-processing, or we're not in trance, that's for sure. So here's a description of what trance sounds like. Bhakti yogena manasi. So it's similar to what Krishna says, or identical to what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. Maya sakta manak prata, with your mind attached to me. Or manmana bhava mad bhakto, with your mind absorbed in me and become my devotee. So Vyas did it. Not that to say that Vyas was like us, bahushaka, yanantascha. He's not like that. Many branched, attentiveness. but he's now very, 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 very focused. That's 5 varies. Very focused. Bhakti Yogena, in the mood of service. Because he doesn't have a need. He has compassion. He knows others have needs. And they're missing those needs. They're going to be victimized by the age of Kali, which is a bad time and circumstance. I want to do something about those people not having to go through that suffering. So here's the remedy. Bhakti Yogena Manasi. Samyak. It's a nice word. It's a strong word. Samyak means perfectly. Perfectly. Or completely. Meaning nothing else. Samyak. Pranihate. Engaged in and fixed upon. And then amale. There's mala and amala. There's amala means spotless or pure. Squeaky clean. Not just clean, but squeaky clean. So the mind that's nothing but absorbed in Krishna. Bhakti Yogena Manasi Samyak Praniyate Amale. So that's the means of achieving, and then there's what is achieved. He's seeing a pashat. He saw, not with these material eyes, because he's doesn't even have his material eyes open. It says spiritual vision, or the Lord is appearing in his seat of consciousness. That's the soul. With his Maya, his material energy, under his complete control. Now, normally we don't see the Supreme Lord. Why? Because there's something in between us and the Supreme Lord, and that's Maya. But in this case, specifically, it's described she was on his backside, so she was like the shadow of, instead of the covering of. Let's hear Srila Prabhupada's wonderful purport. Perfect vision of the absolute truth is possible only by the linking process of devotional service. This is also confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita. One can perfectly realize the absolute truth, personality, Godhead, only by the process of devotional service, and one can enter into the kingdom of God by such perfect knowledge. Note the connection. He's including knowledge with what you see and where you go in this life and after this life. But that's knowledge. So an example of this, nice example of this. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 13. In Bhagavad Gita, chapter 13, there's 6 questions, the very first verse of chapter 13. And Arjuna wants to know 2 pairs of 3, which makes 6. And one of those pairs is knowledge and the object of knowledge. Matter and spirit. Kshetra and Kshetragya, matter and spirit. Everything okay? Okay. So in verses 8 through 12 of chapter 13, Krishna's response is he's describing knowledge, which is the same as what's being said here. I'll read the little section. One can perfectly realize the absolute truth, personality of Godhead, only by the process of devotional service, and one can enter into the kingdom of God by such perfect knowledge. So there's the process of devotional service, there's the object of realization, the absolute truth, personality of Godhead, and then by such knowledge. So that was one of the questions. So knowledge doesn't mean like information, like information technology. That's information. Information is different than knowledge. Knowledge is different than just information. There's information for those who are situated in knowledge, but it's not just information. It's transcendence, or it's the fruit of fixing one's mind on the source of everything. Then full light, full illumination, or full knowledge comes. So there's the process, knowledge, and then there's the object of knowledge, the absolute truth. So we're getting a slow motion, or a snapshot picture of what Vyasadeva did, and which means what we're supposed to do. Now, we're not necessarily going to sit on the side of the river Saraswati in a cottage and do those things, but it's the principle is the same principle to and to do, and at least through practice, to move closer and closer by practice. Sometimes it seems we're getting further and further, but by practice they get closer and closer to perfection. Perfect knowledge, perfect trance, the Supreme Personality of Godhead may appear if he chooses to. Imperfect realization of the Absolute by the partial approach of the impersonal Brahman or localized Paramatma does not permit anyone to enter the kingdom of God. Sri Narada advised Vyasadeva, previous chapter, to become absorbed in transcendental meditation on the personality of Godhead and his activities. Srila Vyasadeva did not notice the effulgence of Brahman because that is not absolute vision. Well, wait a minute. The effulgence from the Supreme Person is an aspect of the Supreme Person. So it's not the fullness of the Absolute Truth, but it's an aspect of the Absolute Truth. So it's not material. It's beyond material. But it's not complete. The absolute vision is the personality of Godhead, as is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 7:19. Vasudeva Sarvamiti. Some of our devotees here like Sanskrit verses, Bhagavad Gita verses. What's the whole, someone raise your hand if you know. What's the whole verse for 7:19, Bhagavad Gita? I see one hand. Go ahead. Samahatma Sadurlabha. Now, do you remember, those of you that heard her say the verse? Let's say it together. Bahunmanam janmanam ante gyanavan mam prapajate Vasudeva sarvamiti samahatma sadurlabha. Nice verse. So the Vasudeva personal feature is the culmination. After many Bahunam Janmanam Ante, to actually, one who actually knows Krishna, Gyanavan Mam Prapajate. And when that prapajate or surrender is there, then the person may reveal himself. Vasudeva Sarvamiti, he's everything. So back to the purport. In the Upanishads, it is also confirmed that Vasudeva, the personality of Godhead, is covered by the glowing Hiranmayena Patrena veil of impersonal Brahman. I remember this in the good old brahmachari days, we would recite the entire Ishopanishad, every Ishopanishad class. It kind of like got drilled in just by reciting it again and again. Hiranmayena patrena satyasyapi hitam mukam. The, the Hiranmaya, that's the dazzling effulgence. The prayer from the person who's offering this prayer in Ishopanishad, he's praying, my dear Lord, please remove your dazzling effulgence, Hiranmaya patrena, so that I can see your form of bliss. So there's Maya, and there's Hiranmaya, and then there's the form. And when that curtain is removed by the mercy of the Lord, the real face of the Absolute is seen. The Absolute is mentioned here as the Purusha, or person. The Absolute personality of Godhead is mentioned in so many Vedic literatures and in the Bhagavad Gita. The Purusha is confirmed as the eternal and original person. Eternal and original person. What's the Sanskrit for that from Bhagavad Gita? Ramya, do you know? Shatvata? Purana? Nahanyate hanyamani shiriri. The internal energy is there, along with the absolute person, as the moon light is there with the moon. The external energy is compared to darkness because it keeps the living entities in the darkness of ignorance. So internal, external. The word apashrayam, apashrayam, suggests that this energy of the Lord is under full control. The internal potency, or superior energy, is also called Maya, but it is spiritual Maya, or energy, exhibited by in the absolute realm. When one is under the shelter of the internal potency, the darkness of material ignorance is at once dissipated, and even those who are Atma Rama, or fixed in trance, take shelter of this Maya, or internal energy. It's making it. He's dropping the phrase Atma Rama, but there's another very important verse, and the whole of the many important verses in the Bhagavatam, speaking specifically what an Atmarama is. Who knows that verse? Atmaramas chamunayo nirgranta api urukrame. Atmarama. Atma Rama, one fully satisfied within the soul. Atma Rama. Fixed in trance. Those persons take shelter of this Maya, or internal energy. Devotional service or bhakti yoga is the function of the internal energy. Semicolon. Thus, there is no place for the inferior energy or material energy, just as there's no place for darkness in the effulgence of spiritual light. Such internal energy is even superior to the spiritual bliss attainable in the conception of impersonal Brahman. It is stated in the Bhagavad Gita. That this impersonal Brahman effulgence is also an emanation from the absolute personality of Godhead Sri Krishna. The Parama Purusha cannot be anyone except Sri Krishna himself, as will be explained in later slokas. So, this is the first of the several verses that are essence verses of the entire Srimad Bhagavatam. Or, say it the other way, what Vyas was told by Narada, what you experience in your trance of meditation should be your subject matter. For one book that illuminates and expands on what you realize when you're in trance. So it's important to realize, to get the foundation of what the whole rest of the Srimad Bhagavatam is, that which he realized in trance. The medium or the means to reach that realization is bhakti. The particular method of bhakti that was engaged in by Vyas was specific to that age and specific to his capacity. We don't have that capacity, nor is it the same age. So how are we supposed to receive such benefit? Well, one of the answers is the Supreme Lord didn't have to reveal himself in the mind of Vyas. That is to say, the Lord shows his form at his own volition, not by any prompt or causation. There's nothing material that can cause the Lord to appear or stop the Lord from appearing. So now what about us? Is the goal just to have this experience of seeing the form of Krishna? Or is the goal to have the kind of heart that's pure, amala, as the word is mentioned in the verse, where the heart is pure? There's nothing else but the natural desire of the soul to be engaged in the service of the Lord in full concentration, full attention. So that takes practice. It also, the practice may enable that kind of purity. And when that kind of purity is there, whether one is seeing or not seeing, the sense of connection is there. And it's palpable. Or when someone becomes very qualified, spiritually very qualified, their presence is beneficial regardless of what they're doing. What they're explaining, what they're experiencing, or describing something in scripture, or just being present. My thought is going to just being in Prabhupada's presence. So many people, because he was very merciful, had the opportunity to be in his presence because he went here and there specifically for giving his association. And even if he was just walking, what to speak of thising or thating, talking, chanting, his mere presence was like light. And palpably one could feel something in his presence. And what to speak of when he spoke, especially, if one was, or to the degree that one was attentively listening, it penetrated. That's the benefit of sadhu sangha, of a genuine sadhu, and the genuine sadhu, by their presence, what to speak of by what they say and what they do, by their mere presence, they help to revive the Krishna consciousness of others. So Vyasadeva is a literary person. That's the gift, the empowerment. And he's using this empowerment first under the advice of Narada, because he already compiled all the Vedas, but he was feeling insufficient. So now, under the advice of Narada, he's fixing his mind on the personality of Godhead, seeing a distinction from the benefit of the purport, seeing a distinction between these two kinds of Maya. Maya just means energy, spiritual energy, material energy. Material energy was on the backside. Specifically, we'll hear. Behind. Normally, we don't see the form of the Lord because it's in front. And like this Ishopanishad reference, please remove your effulgence, please remove your Mahamaya, please remove your Hiranmaya, so that I can see your form of bliss. And it's up to him to do those things. We can't do those things because they're under his control. So why would he do or not do? It's not whimsical. He wants us to see him. He wants us to be with him. He wants loving exchange with us. But we don't sufficiently. And supposing someone becomes spiritually advanced through who knows how many lifetimes of practice. There's no demand on Krishna's side to show himself or to reveal truths to us. I know some people that they're at that stage of their bhakti, they're impatient. It doesn't work like that. They can remain impatient, but that doesn't mean they stamp their foot and Krishna's got to jump. Or a phrase that I like is, when you surrender to Krishna, you surrender on his terms. Not on your terms, but on his terms. And then, so here's what's happening. This is one verse out of several, where the foundation of the entire Srimad Bhagavatam is being established. That is the submission of such an elevated person, Vyasadeva, to such an elevated person, Narada, getting instructions how to cross the finish line, how to achieve what he wanted to achieve, which is a service for all mankind. Because if all mankind benefit in this way, then the other living entities will also benefit just from the presence of a person who has crossed the finish line or who has come to that stage of perfect realization. So keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. The practice and practice and practice. And more practice and more practice. And when the stage of perfection comes, it's no longer practice, it's spontaneous. One doesn't desist from those same activities, but it becomes spontaneous, not just practice for the means of becoming purified. In the purified state, the practice to become purified is past. So now it's existing in the realm of the purified. And not just send a text message back to the people that aren't purified yet. And give association by compassion and by instruction. And that's our lives. So we're at some stage on the trajectory of our spiritual evolution. And the instructions may in detail vary, but the principle remains the same. And these initial verses of chapter 7 are giving us that picture. So let's see if there's thoughtful questions in the audience here. See if you'd like to discuss. Here he is. His favorite service.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. You mentioned that when Prabhupada was there and you were in his presence, you could feel that the palpable presence of Prabhupada. So I'm remembering one of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Maharaj's quotes that you showed in Sunday Feast, that when a pure devotee is there I think I'm paraphrasing it, I'm not remembering the exact text, but because he carries Krishna in his heart, the place where he is like a pilgrimage place,
Yeah.
or something similar to that, or where Krishna Katha is discussed, or
Yes, for
something.
Krishna Katha. But the verse that you spoke, or the message that you spoke, is in the Bhagavatam.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So that's the way to understand that when you feel something from a saintly person in his presence, is that the way to understand that that's a place of pilgrimage, and that's
Well, it's
what
not
you're,
because you feel it's a place of pilgrimage because it's a place of
Yeah.
pilgrimage.
of course.
It's a place of pilgrimage because the agent of purity, the conduit for purity, is there, making the place that may be not clean by the pure and powerful presence of the saintly person.
Just the purity, the aspect of it.
So what does that mean, purity? So I gave a whole seminar on what purity means, right? It's recorded. You can, if you want to go through it. It's several part. What
Okay.
does purity mean and how to get there?
Mm.
But when one is there, that their mere presence, they say things, they do things, but just their vibrational presence helps make the place pure. And then continuing association, prolonged association, just like, the reading of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Its message is spotless Purana, Amala Purana. It's all pure. There's no tinge of the modes of nature. It's all pure. So read and read and read, or chant and chant and chant, or worship and worship and worship, and purification comes because it's the source of purity. And the representatives of those persons have that same capacity. So now, if that's the principle, what are we supposed to do with that principle? Associate with those pillars. The holy Dham, the Srimad Bhagavatam, the holy name, serving the Vaishnavas, the deity form of the Lord. We go to those places regularly with palms folded and with devotion and eagerness to receive. And gradually, we also become like that.
Thank you,
Okay.
Maharaj.
Krishna.
Maharaj. I was thinking a nice example of that was when Nityananda was traveling to all the different holy places,
Yeah. That's
and
a
he
good
met
one.
Madhavendra Puri.
Yes.
It's a nice example. So
Yeah.
now I've got the result of going to all the holy places.
Yes.
I met you.
He was, you can say, he's already the Supreme Lord, but setting an example, one becomes qualified by those prior purification, going to, visiting, getting the blessings of, and then the person, Madhavendra Puri. Nice. Just this morning at 5:30 this morning, I was with the Chinese devotees. We were speaking about the arrangements that were made before Madhvacharya was born. His father was from a Vaishnava Brahmana family. His father had some from his father's childhood, from Gurukul, he was very attracted to Srimad Bhagavatam, the line of Brahmanas in which his father appeared, in which Madhvacharya appeared, were Brahmanas. It's described in the biography as Bhagavata Sampradaya. They had that as a group, and his father was particularly gifted, so gifted that large audiences would come to hear him speaking Bhagavatam. The biography says the demigods would assemble in the sky to hear him speak Srimad Bhagavatam. He was a good Bhagavatam speaker. And he wanted to have a son who would make a difference, because during his time, his father's time, the teachings of Shankaracharya were very prevalent. It was several hundred years after he appeared, but it had expanded and expanded. It was oppressive for those who were Vaishnavas, because Shankaracharya appeared in the same state, and the influence was moving into their community, and he felt oppressed. He wanted to do something similar to, different but similar to Vyas. He wanted to do something. So what did he do? His place of residence, known as Pajaka Kshetra, it was about 3 hours walk from Udupi. Now, there wasn't Udupi Krishna, but there was a deity that was the central part of that whole community over very large tracts of land, big area. Ananteshwara deity. Every day, for 12 years, he walked 3 hours and 3 hours back to go before the deity and offer prayers to the deity that he could become qualified to have such a qualified son. He had no son. He had a daughter. But he wanted a qualified son. So he prepared. And then he and his wife decided, after 12 years, is now begetting children in a proper way. His son became an incarnation of, or partial expansion of, according to this biography, Vayu, and did many amazing things. But the receiver of one who can do the many things requires qualification. That's a parenting lesson. But to achieve anything that's of a spiritual nature, one has to be willing to undergo purification, because purified consciousness makes one able to do purified activities and have purified consequences. Supposing you're not so prepared. Bhakti's nice, prasadam is nice, kirtan's nice, but I don't know about the austerity part. Then that's what life is going to be like, the mix. And then it doesn't have to be, proportionate to one's submission unto the source of everything, and the preparation to qualify one to become connected more completely with the source of everything. That's we're being invited into that arena, into that realm. You don't have to be severe, but we have to be sincere. And in our sincerity, the things that we do them mindfully and devotionally and regularly, and purification will come, and we become better instruments of the Supreme Lord, and more palpably experiencing what is being described here, at least from further distance than Vyas, but experiencing the Supreme Personality of Godhead in our life, practically. That's who we are. We're the Hare Krishna people. That's what we're being encouraged to do. Someone else, right behind you.
Hare Krishna Maharaji. So in Sunday class, you mentioned a very powerful point.
Well, I just was quoting Bhaktisiddhanta.
Yes, Maharaj. But that went very deeper inside me. You said that a serious devotee should not find fault in others.
Yes.
Rather look within, inside, and purify. And it really went very deep. I have been meditating on that. Even I spoke with my wife today about that. But when we have to do so many services, how we can manage ourselves so that we don't come very offensive?
Okay. Two things. He's going to give you the microphone back. Would you like the microphone back? There we go. Okay. Discerning is not a problem. Discerning is something, it's a function of intelligence. So the intelligence light should be on, not off. And there's a difference between discerning and fault finding. Supposing you're a discerning person, supposing you're a Paka Brahmin, just close your eyes and imagine you're a Paka Brahmin. So you're Paka Brahmin and you can discern this mode, that mode, the other mode. And the consequences of the actions in this mode, that mode, the other mode. The impact on the lives of others around that person, this mode, that. So you can see all of that. But fault finding is something else. The Bhaktisiddhanta method, two things. Mend yourself. So first look within yourself and where there's shortcomings. Not over there's a shortcoming and there's this mode, that mode, da, da, da. So you can discern. Don't turn it off. But the introspection is the Vaishnav way. We look within. How can I become a better instrument of Krishna and Krishna's message so that in my association with this other person, because Krishna's kind and he's giving me discerning capacity, my intelligence is operating guided by the Shastra, I can discern. I can see what's what. Shastra Chakshus, I can see. But now I also have the heart that's sufficiently pure that now I have an idea how I can help this person, be in service to this person, or keep a safe distance, or whatever is appropriate, because that's what a discerning person will do. And the compassionate person, the Vaishnav, will want, even at a distance, to pray for their well-being, not to fault find and say, look at that pockmark on the moon. Not only that one, look at this one, and look at that one, and that's fault finding. So the advice, back to your question, Bhaktisiddhanta's advice is don't be a fault finder. Be a discerner, but don't be so see through the eyes of Scripture. How much is there in Bhagavad Gita about the modes of nature? There are more verses in the Bhagavad Gita about the modes of nature than any other topic. It's an important topic to discern through the lens of Scripture. Now, supposing you get learned enough or purified enough, you can see this mode, that mode. Now what? Don't fault find. Be in the mood of service. Here's the soul, captured by this brand or that brand or some other one, or mix with the modes of nature. What facility is there for me to be in service to the soul in this circumstance? The mode of service. That's what souls do to other souls. And one service may be, depending, let me just keep a safe distance, be a well-wisher from a safe distance. Because I don't have the power or the capacity to. But, may that day come when you become Prabhupada-like. You become an instrument where you can go anywhere and lift anybody. Oof. Maybe that day will come. Maybe it won't come. But at least I know my limitations, and I'm not going to be a fault finder because Bhaktisiddhanta said don't do that. Doesn't help you, doesn't help them, doesn't help anything. Doesn't help the modes of nature, doesn't help the soul, doesn't help anything. You go down in the modes of nature by fault finding. So don't do that. So now how do you not do that? When you're discerning. You're in the mood of service. You follow the instructions of Bhaktisiddhanta that says don't do that. Look within. Don't pry into the faults of others, but look within and see where's there room for improving myself. If that's your focus and your occupation, internal occupation, that in itself will help others who you interface with become more elevated. Even if you don't do anything, say anything. Just by purity, by that force, you can be of service to others. Even you don't do anything, say anything. But certainly don't go down the path of fault finding. That's always, don't be a fault finder. It's toxic for oneself and for the whole atmosphere around you. Discerning, but not a fault finder. Okay, somebody else in the back? I saw a hand. Yes?
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. Maharaj, in the presence of a pure devotee, or when we go to a dham, or in a kirtan sometime, heart feels very jubilant or happy. Is that curtain of Maya is a little slim or thin?
It's just,
Or
generally speaking, it's just an encouragement from Krishna. It's not the goal. There's a nice verse I've been meditating on. Someone can look it up with their vedabase.com. The verse has the phrase prema sukha bhoga. Lord Chaitanya is giving instructions to Sanatana Goswami in Chaitanya Charitamrita. And after saying it's a whole series of things, but he's saying that the purpose of life is not material enjoyment. The purpose of life is not dismissing material enjoyment. The goal, the mature stage, is where one doesn't do those things. The purpose of love of God is not to achieve either of those things, but to bhoga. We all know what bhoga means. What does bhoga mean? Huh? Enjoying. So we something that's not offered to Krishna. That's bhoga. And something that's offered to Krishna, prasad. So bhoga and prasad. So question, I'm asking you. Does bhoga have its place in prema bhakti? Say yes. Because that's what Lord Chaitanya said to Sanatana Goswami. Love of God doesn't have the characteristic of achieving material happiness, or doesn't have the characteristic of trying to enter into the impersonal Brahman. The characteristic of love of God is prema sukha bhoga. Then that enjoyment is not separate from Krishna. But so there's transcendental enjoyment, or bhoga, and there's the other kind, the not transcendental, or just getting rid of it is not transcendental. But prema sukha bhoga, and the second is the characteristic of love of Godhead. This is how it's translated, is service. Now, that service has different manifestations for categories and personalities, and so, service. But service unto whom? Service unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now, in other words, just let's go back to this example of Vyas. His interest wasn't just, let me see the personality of Godhead just once. His purpose was, I want to be in service to all the living entities who are caught, suffering, struggling, and going to increase and increase and increase in this age of Kali, because it gets worse and worse. And I want to do something. I want to be of service to those living entities. In that mood of service, there was reciprocation. So the service and there's certainly a happiness, but not a material happiness. There's a world of difference, a night and day difference between material happiness and prema sukha bhoga. Sukha, happiness. Prema sukha bhoga. And be the enjoyer of that happiness. Okay, so I got distracted by that verse from the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Someone else? You're satisfied? Okay. Anybody over here?
Hare Krishna, Maharaji.
Okay.
Thank you for such an enlightenment class today and a lot of things to learn. I have one quick question or clarification, Maharaj, on one of the aspect that I was not able to understand at some point. When we know that everything belongs to Krishna, and Krishna is the supreme controller. Even the intelligence that we are receiving, or the opulence we have, or any kind of service we are doing, is all the root cause is Krishna himself. But while executing, we know at the back of my mind that this something belongs to him. But while executing that service, or while performing some activity, or owning some opulence, at that moment, it's some factor coming in that it's something that I am the contributor as well. It's something that I'm also doing it, and at some point, it's just because the lack of my surrender towards or the lack of intelligence or the lack of complete knowledge that's making deviated to understand that ultimately it's Krishna who is doing everything. Let me fully surrender to it. So there's a missing thing, that something is blocking me to have full surrender on that aspect of it. So is that something that I'm lacking at this moment, or is that or not fully following the path? Some enlightenment, Maharaj.
Srila Prabhupada likens spiritual realization to the rising of the sun that's gradual. Supposing it's dawn and the sun is about to rise, so it goes from darkness to twilight to the sun is about to rise. Have you been in situations where you can
Dim light to the light.
Yeah.
Yes.
the sun looks really big, and it gets smaller and smaller and more. So as the sun is starting to rise, the darkness is being dissipated. It's not necessarily that there's something wrong with you because the sun didn't suddenly rise. It's a gradual. I'm using this as an example.
Sure.
God realization is gradual. So it's not necessarily there's something wrong with how you're applying yourself. It may be. One could say it in other ways. Residual tendencies that still have a hold, like the blades of a fan continue to spin even when electricity is off. So the electricity could be off, or the blades of fans still spinning because of the prior involvement in material energy and material activities, material conceptions, and trying to be the enjoyer and all that stuff. So for most of us, it's kind of a combination of what you said and what I'm saying. That is, we're still holding on. Tendency. And then, something may happen. Always something's going to happen. Something may happen that prompts more of that tendency. So it becomes darker again, or remembrance of Krishna becomes diminished. The sun keeps rising. The sun doesn't stop because we want it to be night still. The sun's going to rise.
Sure.
So it's a combination. My answer is combination of residual conditioning And that spells I'm still holding on. I haven't fully immersed myself in my spiritual position of being Krishna's eternal servant, and he can do with me what he likes. I still have I want him to do this and that. I don't want him to do those other things. So there's conditioning.
Sure.
But and there's also by being a sincere and firm practitioner of abhyasa yoga yuktena cetasa nanyagamino, it's for sure going to unfold. That's confidence or trust or shraddha in the process itself. It's going to happen, and I have to be very patient. But utsaha nishchaya daryat, another scriptural reference, just stay firm. Daryat, be very convinced that the path I've heard, the path I'm following, I'll get there. Whatever is happening or not happening, circumstantially. So some of both.
Thank
You want to have
Maharaj.
something further?
No, that's
You're
that's
okay.
that's very nice.
Okay.
Shraddha. Thank you.
Maharaj, this is an online question.
Hey.
The question is by Sundara Gaura Das. Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. Guru Maharaj, how should we react if our friends or colleagues is sharing someone's fault?
Is finding fault?
It says,
If our
is
friend
sharing someone's fault?
sharing?
Sharing someone's fault. Like
I
if a
think I would
friend
need
is.
I would
sharing-
need clarification in the question in order to answer. You gonna answer? Give him the microphone. Give this young man the microphone.
I think the question means like that what happens when a friend or someone shares a fault of another person.
They share the fault.
Like tell the fault of a different person.
How should we react if our friends / colleague are sharing some fault? Oh, they're expressing their fault finding. You're not fault finding, but you're hearing someone fault finding. What to do when you hear someone fault finding? That's the question. That's what you're. Okay. My classic answer for something like this is it depends. You need your discerning faculty, and depends on the person who's sharing another's fault. It depends on the dynamic, the space where you are with them. It depends on the intensity with which they're expressing. It depends, there's factors that a discerning person can make a quick scan, and then you make a selection from the menu of possible ways to respond. Rule out, you become a fault finder of your friend who's sharing about another person. Don't become a fault finder of the person who's sharing fault finding. Here's some options in this brainstorming list. My dear friend, I'm not a very advanced devotee, and I can't hear these things because I'm not a very advanced devotee. So, please don't share these kinds of things with me because I'm not a very advanced devotee. Or, my dear friend, long ago I was given some lessons in bhakti. And the lessons in bhakti was to not speak like this about someone, nor to hear about someone like this. So please be kind to me. And you're feeling these feelings, and obviously, it's important to you to share your feelings. But I'm not. This isn't something that we as Vaishnavas are to do. You can take a role of a friend instructing a friend in some language or another. In the worst case scenario, an option is you just get up and walk out. That's a strong message. It's pretty extreme, but that's an option on the list because some persons are obsessive when it comes to, there's a bee in their bonnet and they got to do something, say something. So you can be silent and get up and walk out. You can say, Prabhu, obviously mind is disturbed. I'm not such an advanced devotee to hear these kinds of things, even in confidence. So please, I'm going to just stand up right now and walk out of the room because I don't have the capacity to hear these things. I've been trained to not hear these things. I understand you're feeling some feelings, but I'm not the right person. This isn't the right place. Folded palms, due respect. I hope you find a solution to the hurt and the pain that you're feeling. Or, blaming others for your difficulties isn't a solution. Anyway, there are different options depending upon the person, the time, place, circumstance. But, don't be passive. And then there's a range of options. Okay, I think we should end. Any final burning? I don't see anybody burning.
Hare
Okay.
Krishna Maharaj. So I just want to get some advice on how to not get stuck on things, but keep the main thing in mind, and just okay, this is not the thing I want to deal with, kind of, and keep.
It's the mind. How to control the mind when it's stuck on some negative thing. That's not the
Nothing
question?
negative, but it's more like nothing important kind of a thing. More not having the goal, but just stagnant on things kind of a thing.
Congratulations. Congratulate yourself. What you just said means, to me it means, the light's on. Some people are in that space, they don't even know they're in that space. They're in La La Land, or they just in La La Land, they don't even know they're in La La Land. They're just moving along in life, and that's life. So it's a step forward to realize the light's not on. That's so. I'm going to give a little suggestion in response to what I've understood your question to be. Next, mode of goodness. Mode of goodness, one of the features of mode of goodness is reflect and introspect. This is from our acharyas. Reflect and introspect. Reflect. You step back. Here's what's going on. And I'm not really sure why it's going on, but I'm pretty clear by discerning what's going on. Now, not in the mood of anger or frustration or beating yourself up or any of those other toxic things. What's important to me? It's a good question. And you can give a textbook answer. What's important to me is, and you check the box, but what's really important to me? This is the introspection part, reflection and introspection. And it's somehow that what's important to me, the brightness of that light has diminished. Because that brightness of the light, I'm in this kind of stuck space, stagnating space, complacency space. So let me go revisit what's important to me. And I may want to refine it or articulate it more clearly. But go to that reflection and introspection, go to that place, and then come steps. What are some doable steps today, now, I can take to get to what's important to me? And you do some of that. And you do more of that, you do more, happiness and the light on, the light is on, dynamic starts to replace the complacency or the dullness or the stuck. Here's another. Sadhu Sangha. A friend. Someone who knows you well. They're not judging you. They know you well. They're well-wishers. They accept you for who you are. And they have wisdom. And you just borrow some of that wisdom from the wise friend. You don't become the order supplier of them. There's so it's friend. It's a different kind of a relationship. A wise friend that knows you. And you can open your heart and say, I'm stuck. You know me. Can you share some things with me? And that in relation-wise, there's Super Soul in the middle of that relationship, and Super Soul can speak through them because they're wise. So it's good to have friends, real friends, not chums, but real friends, devotee friends. In some cases, I go to authority that's I look up to, and that's what Vyas did with Narada. So there's options, but it starts with your question. Recognizing I'm stuck, or I'm not in a dynamic mood right now. I'm in the other kind, complacent or not really going anywhere mood. That's not what I want. So the recognition. This is a Jayadvaita Swami Uvacha. Recognition, regret, reinstatement, rectification. He calls it the 4R program. Recognition, that's what your question is. Regret, rectification, reinstatement. Nice. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.